Good to see you. Let's get this all set up just a little bit better. Terrific. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Healing Momentum. And today what we're going to do is talk about something that I think is very, very powerful. The idea of when we are faced with difficult situations, real difficult situations, that we have it in us to create a healing, to be present in the moment of real serious difficult situations in our personal lives, turning points in our relationships, moments where we go, this is the beginning or the end of something, work. I'm going to share a story from my own work, career, life that will help you to understand where I'm going with this material and how it can be helpful for you. And we're going to use principles and ideas that I've been teaching about mirroring, about healing communication, and about your spiritual journey, about understanding what's really going on, to be able to help you to use the materials and to use the concepts, to use the system that I teach here in this channel, Healing Momentum, and in all my workshops and my client work, to be able to see very real, difficult situations in a different way, in a way that you may open to something that is very new to you, that may be bring up interesting feelings and may give you a new perspective that will bring a sense of well-being and a sense of relief and a sense of options and hopefulness for you in handling things that you may have already gone through, to give you new perspective, things that are coming up for you, or just to be prepared in the moment for those kinds of situations. So thank you for being here. And I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and take a look at some of the other videos in the channel, because the whole fullness of the material, the message that I'm offering, comes from different nuances in the different videos and live streams that I offer. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching. So creating a healing out of difficult situations. So creating a healing, what do I mean by that? Creating a healing, I mean that there is a higher level energy field that is possible in that moment. That in a moment of stress, in a moment of life-altering dynamics, that there are ways for us to achieve perspectives that feel better, that open us to nature, that open us to the flow of what's really happening here, that bring us a new feeling, that bring us a sense of relief, that bring us a state of well-being in the midst of the difficult situation. So a healing may not necessarily mean that that situation will get better. It may be a breakdown, breakup kind of moment. But even still, the perspective of what's going on will bring a healing, will bring a sense of a well-being feeling that may be below the surface of the moment, or may be moving through you in spite of the moment. So there's something to think about that piece. So creating a healing. And then difficult situations, again, we're talking about the one that I'm going to bring was a moment where my job was on the line and where I was the one who created that problem. So a self-inflicted moment of hurt, and a moment of unconsciousness, out of habits of unconsciousness, that led to a very, very stressful, life-altering moment that I had to handle in that time. This is about 22 years ago now. Anyway, so anybody else have these kinds of things happen with them, where the boss calls you in and says, we need to talk, you need to come by the office, or where the husband and the wife has a very important disclosure about your child, about their behavior, about your behavior, something where there's going to become a significant change, and you're faced with it right there. Now, if you're watching, leave a comment. How is this feeling so far? Have you been through these kinds of things? Do you know what I'm talking about in terms of difficult moments? Feel free to engage with the video and let me know, hey, I went through this, or, this is what feelings come up for me about those kinds of moments. Okay, terrific. So, the piece that I want to to focus on, what I'm going to be doing is offering a recorded video, an edited video, and then a live stream a couple of days after that. And I want them to be related so that you can have a brief experience where I'm able to edit and focus on a concept and give you something of a healing experience. And then a couple of days later, I'll give you the live stream where we can go deeper, where we can interact if you're on the video watching it live. And that you could hear stories surrounding the concept in a way where I could be a little bit more liberated to just talk about it and not, worry about, how did that shot go? And worry about the editing, where you're going to get it right from me in the moment. So the video that I had just put out that I hope you take a look at is the one that focuses on the 5 words that will help you to improve your mood forever. And those 5 words are, what am I feeling? I'm sorry, what am I really feeling? What am I really feeling? So again, if you haven't seen that video, go watch that under the videos tab. And what those words, what am I really feeling? We're going to go a little deeper into that, and I'm going to talk to you about what I was really feeling in a real difficult moment that I had, so you can understand from my journey the kind of process that we need to go through in those moments, internally and externally. And it really starts with the skill level of being able to understand what's happening with me right now. What about this is something I ought to believe in? And what about this is all reactivity happening inside of me? What am I really feeling below the surface? This is a very important question of mindfulness that could change your life for the better. And also cut off really difficult and problematic situations from happening because of your mindfulness of the feeling that is happening below the surface. And as we use the word momentum, that concept of momentum, meaning that when something, you'll see in the other video of a guy biking downhill, when there's a feeling going on that feels like it's out of control, a downhill feeling, like it's in the river, it's going. When we have awareness of that feeling and we're mindful and we ask, what am I really feeling? Then we could understand the whole situation on the outside way better and be able to be cut off it going into a worse dynamic because of our mindfulness of what's happening inside, and because of our mindfulness and awareness of what has been happening on the inside that may have created that situation in the first place. It's not just about, oh, this is what showed up for me, or you wouldn't believe what happened, or who called me today, and what that meant for me, and how that wasn't fair, and all those things. Well, when you ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What have I been really feeling? What has been the dominant emotion inside me that may have led to this moment? You get a really different angle of what's going on inside you and how you're creating your life and how you want to create your life. So, what am I really feeling? Now, we're also going to look at dynamics of sending and receiving, in mirroring that we're always working with this concept of that whoever's in front of us, in this case, I'm sending and you're receiving, but that's happening all the time. That we want to look at the idea of our partners. It's somebody who is a partner in our life. It's not necessarily a love partner, but the person in front of us is a partner. Right now, you are my partner, and we are collaborating in the sense of you listening and me offering this teaching. But we want to look at the sending and receiving dynamics that are happening in all of these issues in our life, in particular in the difficult situations. What is the dynamic happening between me and my partner? Who's sending? Who's receiving? Who should be resending? Do I need to go into receiving mode in this difficult moment? So that's another aspect of the overall learning, is getting the dynamics of mirroring and understanding what's happening with the sending receiving dynamics and what you can do to improve the energy by really getting what makes good sending and what makes good receiving. And that will really help you be create something out of these moments, even if they're difficult, even if the emotions are hot, even if you are paralyzed, even if you are flooded, even if you're confused, that by bringing it back to those basics of understanding what's going on with the sending and the receiving, are we in harmony or not, and how do I create harmony, and what's really happening below the surface. So that third part is getting this concept of the micro and the macro, that what's happening in the sending and receiving really is the micro, that like right here, I'm sending, you're receiving, this is what's happening in the moment. But what's the macro, the larger river of your life, the larger flow? Where's this all going? Maybe you watching me right now and you're not meant to be watching me. The river of your life is taking you here for a moment, and then you realize, wait, no, Michael's not my teacher. Michael's not somebody to help to learn from. And you realize, oh, okay, in the macro, the larger flow, I'm meant to learn this or other things from other people. What is the deeper learning happening in these difficult moments that you might not get in the moment, but when you understand, okay, in the micro, in the sending and receiving that's happening, there's a macro, there's a larger message that is happening for me to understand here. And that's why this difficult moment is happening. This conflict is happening because something larger in the larger flow of my life, the larger story is taking me somewhere. And I want to really read the sending and receiving dynamics well. Why? So that I could sense, even in the hot moment, even in the difficult emotion, having enough of awareness of where is this going? What's happening below the surface that I ought to be listening to? And where is this taking me? And when I understand that, then what am I feeling? What am I really feeling then? Because those feelings may be really, really different than the difficult anger or resentment or unexpectedness and surprise and all of those things that may happen that have brought you to that difficult moment in the first place. In other words, that difficult moment may be a life-changing moment about that situation. Or if you understand the larger field, the macro of that moment, even if it's a micro moment and a difficult micro moment, the macro, where is this all going, may help you to understand that ability to see it, will awaken you to things that are wanting to happen in your life. And I believe that that's in every difficult moment, that's what's going on. It might not be that that difficult moment means you're supposed to stay in that situation. It may not mean that that difficult moment is giving you a teaching about that situation. It may be a teaching in that situation about something else, and it's asking you to pay attention to that something else. Well, how do you know? What comes up out of your learning? And how are you feeling once you moved through it? When you sense that feeling below the surface, then you could have more a deeper understanding of the larger macro flow of where this is all going and what you're meant to learn. So I hope we're doing well with this so far. I hope you're enjoying this. Again, if you haven't, please engage with the channel, subscribe if you haven't. And at the end, I'll tell you a couple of things, certainly about if you're interested in getting my book, The Zen of Solo Travel, A Journey from Anxiety to Enlightenment, which goes into a lot of these kinds of teachings, talks to you about my discovery of mirroring, and also gives you this incredible personal journey that I went to Japan, where I believe that we can learn a lot by leaving everything behind and going somewhere and having a powerful new relationship with ourselves. So that's the book, and that is available to you if you go into the comment section. And the other thing I'll talk about later is if you're interested of doing some work with me, you can try an initial session with me on Zoom, and that's for personal healing or for professional development, leadership, communication, and wellness, corporate wellness in your professional leadership. More on that later. Okay, so let me tell this story. So we're going to go into this story about a difficult moment in my professional life, and we're going to see how, certainly from the standpoint of what am I really feeling, that inquiry, that question, that we're going to go through this story inquiring about my feelings through it, and how I learned so much more was going on. Okay, so years ago, before I wrote a book and before I became a life coach, I was a middle school teacher, and I taught English in a public high school. I taught in numerous high schools in the West Coast, middle schools in the West Coast and also in the East Coast. This one was when I was in the East Coast. And this was my tenure year at this middle school, where I had been teaching as a middle school English teacher for 4 years at that point. Now, we had a department head of our English department. So this is where the difficult situation came up. Okay, and we're gonna call her Carol for the moment. And she's someone who at that time I had struggles with, and right now I feel very fondly about all the things that we went through. I think she's a really, really good human being and a very important person. But we're gonna call her Carol, and just fictionalize her name and give you what happened for me in my journey of the situation, so that this could impart to you a moment of how I created a healing out of a difficult situation. Okay, so I'm on the verge of receiving my tenure at this middle school as a teacher, and that's a great thing. But Carol, um, she was the head of the department for all the years I had been there. And here's how, if you, from the perspective of what I was struggling with about Carol over those years, was she was landing on me as a micromanager, as someone who was unconscious and intimidating and overworked the staff, or overloaded the staff and didn't take us seriously, and would just communicate with us in ways where I felt like never felt clear, never felt grounded, felt there was always like 10,000 more things that we're supposed to do, but then never felt like we were doing anything right. And I say we, meaning me and the other English teachers, kind of shared this struggle with her. And year by year, each of the English teachers, my colleagues in this school, it would seem as, this teacher would go and this teacher would transfer out, or this teacher would quit. Why? Because of their issues with Carol. And that Carol was such a intense, intimidating, and difficult person to work with or work for, that people would move on, and that they would realize, I can't be here. This is hurting my well-being too much. I need to move out of this situation. And that the effect of her giving us so much stuff, or monitoring us so carefully, or walking into our classrooms and kind of giving us the vibe that we were doing something wrong, and landing on us as critical, that it was very uncomfortable. So here I am now at the school 4 years, and about to be rewarded tenure. And so there was something of a combination of a congratulatory moment and also a vulnerable moment. I wasn't certain if I was going to get it. And here I was. I felt trapped in this dynamic with Carol, where I just didn't like how she was behaving around me, and felt triggered a lot of the time at the school because of her leadership. Okay, what am I really feeling? What am I really feeling? Well, I started writing to the to the people in charge of human resources, and I started writing to people who were in charge when there's issues about teacher conflict, and issues about issues about professionalism. And these emails were getting around, and they were, writing about Carol. She did this and she did that. And she was the problem here, and all this stuff, where I was basically positioning myself as the victim of her professional malpractice, and proving in the way that I was right. Oh, she did this, she did that, she did this, and put it in emails. Okay. I was younger then, and I was in my early 30s, and still very much not only unhealed from my traumatized childhood, but unaware of how deep that healing needed to go. And so here I was, creating a narrative that I was the victim of professional mistreatment, and then putting it out to the union, and putting it out to the principal, and putting it out to the people who were the leaders in the school, and trying to create a fight with Carol. What am I really feeling? First thing, I was unaware of how I was feeling. How was I really feeling? Upon reflection, I was feeling like a hurt child. I was feeling like I was being bullied. I was feeling a sense of righteousness. I was feeling unconscious, and unconscious of a kind of anger, a kind of a righteous anger that I didn't want to admit was there, but it was like, I'm right. I'm going to get you. I'm going to win this fight. Victim. I was feeling hurt. I was feeling beat down. I was feeling unseen. I was feeling weak. I was feeling rotten. I was feeling incompetent. So all these things. And the worst thing about it was, at the time, I was unconscious. I was unaware of these feelings, but the feelings were so intense that I let myself write all these emails, write the union, keep, telling the principal, keep complaining and putting it in writing. Total mistake. So this went on for several weeks, and then the principal got involved and brought me into her office, and, like a kid, you're in trouble, and went over the emails, and she used the word slander in regard to how I was communicating in these emails. And I was like, oh. And suddenly, what am I really feeling? Scared. Okay, I was scared. And that feeling was very real. I was very conscious of that in the moment. Though previously, in writing the emails, this is a really big thing to understand in good sending and good receiving. When we walk into difficult situations, what feelings led us into those situations? Were we aware how we were co-creating the situation? It's not just about blaming the other person. Was she making 10,000 copies of stuff that I didn't needed, Carol? Yes. Was she coming by my room and observing me more than I wanted to? Yes. Was I getting 10,000 emails from her, etc.? Yes. But she did not. If I was calm, if I was feeling content, if I was feeling inner peace, I was not. I was not feeling inner peace. And I was not conscious of the feelings of resentment and anger, and feeling bullied and feeling unseen, and all this childhood stuff going on that was running. It was running my part of it. It gave me those feelings that I was not conscious of, gave me permission to write all here. I'm allowed. I'm being bullied. I could write all this stuff. I could get all these other people involved. I could show them how right I am. Because I wasn't conscious of those feelings had so much momentum. They gave me the legitimacy to act, and I brought that meeting with the principal on my own. It wasn't like, oh, my thing went wrong. No, I invited that. So when we really get good sending and good receiving, we want to look at our own sending. How am I landing on my partners? I'm landing as someone who's slanderous. That's not what I wanted. We want to be so aware of our sends. What am I really feeling, and how is this landing on my partner? How am I landing right now? I hope I'm landing as passionate and wanting to help and informative and caring and strong and truthful. That's what my conscious desire is, how I want to show up. How am I landing? We want to be asking that all the time. Because if we don't do that, these things are going to come to us and we're going to think they came out of the blue. It did not come out of the blue. I invited it. How? Because of my behaviors that came of not realizing what I was feeling. If I realized what I was feeling, I would not have acted on it. And here I was in trouble. So now the tenure that I had fought for was in jeopardy. Okay, what am I really feeling? Scared. What else am I really feeling? Oh, I felt something. I felt it was anger, and it was also like power. I felt, okay, in that moment after being spoken to by the real manager, the principal, um, the fear came up in me, and then the fear, I realized, okay, I need to find a sense of power. So for a moment, then I calmed down, and what am I really feeling? I'm feeling a sort of emergency level calm, a sense of trust, a sense of need, a sense of hunger, a need to act. And from there, I went to Carol's office. So this person who I created this whole narrative about, a narrative that I shared with other people professionally, a narrative that made me into a victim and made her into the perpetrator, a narrative that was playing out childhood issues, unconscious feelings leading to behaviors and an unwanted result. So I knew I needed to clean it up. So in that moment, I did feel, what am I really feeling? This kind of quiet resourcefulness. And I went to Carol and I sat with her, and then I broke, and I talked to her and I said, please forgive me. I went too far. And in that moment, I felt flooded. What was I really feeling? I felt things were out of control. I felt sad. I felt all of that resentment, all of that childhood stuff, all of that being bullied went into this field of it went into the river itself. It went into my tears. It went into a kind of an unlocking of what was really happening in me. It went into a flooding. It went into a release. So what am I really feeling in that moment, face to face with the person that I portrayed as a perpetrator and that now I was apologizing to? I felt forgiveness. I felt the flood of forgiveness. I felt the almost a sense of love, but it wasn't quite that. It was like an overloading. It was a release. It was a sadness. It was a not quite feeling better, but allowing and letting it all be, and letting it all be open and move through me, and allowing myself to let go to the intensity of the moment and the sadness that I was feeling and the disappointment that I was feeling in myself, into forgiveness, and allowing that fullness of forgiveness to be felt. And she picked up on it and she really appreciated it. So what was really going on with that moment? There was something much deeper, just in the fact that I got to the point of apologizing, of realizing this was my role, of realizing that in spite of her behavior, that I was the one who brought this on. And my consciousness of those feelings, and the quick consciousness of those feelings in that moment, gave that to me. But there was something deeper going on. There was something more, not just that I needed to have that release in that moment of forgiveness and to have that moment of forgiveness with Carol, but there was some kind of larger learning happening that I didn't even realize yet. And again, that's what I'm saying, that I believe in all difficult moments, there's something in the middle of the paralysis or the middle of the criticism or the middle of the, you got to make a hot decision fast, that there's something deeper going on that we can be aware about. Okay, so what was it? So Carol she received my apology, and then she started talking about, now part of the dynamic between me and her was that I was this little Jewish man, and she was this very tall African American woman. And that physical aspect led into perceptions on my part, or judgments on my part. And nothing that I felt like I acted in a kind of racist manner, but that, that my own preconceived judgments from the sort of physical, almost humorous nature of this dynamic between my boss and between me was part of the whole story that I had spun in my head. Okay, so now this person that I had tried to stay away from, this person that I avoided, this person I created a story about, I'm effusively apologizing to. And it's landing on her very powerfully. And so what does she tell me? She talks to me about how when she was growing up in the 60s as a Black woman in Brooklyn, and how she was part of the civil rights movement, and how much they had to learn, and how much growth was going on, and how things are hard and how lessons are hard. And I was getting all of that, and I was, hearing her story, and it was honest and it was true, and I was liking it and I was getting it, and I felt that there was going to be a healing, and I felt hopeful and I felt inspired by it, and that was great. And then she said something about, in the witnessing of the civil rights era from her perspective as a teenager growing up in Brooklyn and going through it in the 60s. And then she said, when I was a student at Midwood High School in Brooklyn. So here I was just listening to her. I was just taking it all in. There was just this healing between the two of us. And then she says, when I was a student at Midwood High School in Brooklyn, I said, wait, hold on, Carol, hold on. Where did you go to school? And she said, I was a student at Midwood High School in Brooklyn. And then I said, I went to Midwood High School in Brooklyn. Obviously not at the same time as her. I graduated in the 80s. She graduated in the late 60s or early 70s. But now the whole moment entered this other layer of openness, of awareness, of surprise, of bonding, of kismet, of like, we're here. We went through swimming in the darkness to find this pearl, to find this bonding, to find this shared experience, to share. Like, we both went to Midwood High School, meaning you, my enemy, my evil boss who's here to bully me and ruin my day every day and scare away all my comrades. You and I went to the same high school together. So all of these lessons you're giving me that were deep and real and enough, they were big enough to hear about growing up in the civil rights era and being swept up in the whole struggle of Martin Luther King as an African-American teenager, that I walked the same halls of high school, that you went to chemistry and may have had the same teachers as I had, with teachers who've been there for years. And the two of us were just blown away. It was just like, oh my God, it's like there was so much more happening between the two of us below the surface that we didn't even realize, because we didn't know this about each other. We didn't know that these two people who were walking, crisscrossing, avoiding each other, here she comes, here I go, all these things, this whole dynamic on the surface that was going on for years, below the surface, that this unwanted moment revealed to us, there was a shared friendship. We both went to this place. We both knew these hallways, these teachers, this building, and went through high school, that precious moment in time that we all go through, hopefully. That we had it together. That we're a team. And it was unbelievable. We hugged. We couldn't believe it. It was like we were friends. There was forgiveness. There was calm. There was healing. And now the bell rang and I had to get out of there and go to my class. And the kids were like, where's Mr. Sherman, et cetera, et cetera. And now when I look back at that and I had that realization and that shared bonding, what was I really feeling in that moment? I was feeling awe. I was feeling mountain. I was feeling eagle flying across the sky. I was amazed by it. It was like, I was taken by a feeling that I could not access by myself. But because of that moment, and because I kept staying conscious, and because I kept being aware, what am I receiving from the principal? Oh, wake up, Michael. What was I sending? Ooh, consciousness. I was sending hurt child when I never should have been listening to my child in the first place. Again, my child needed a moment like that. And so what did it do? Oh, well, beat up, traumatized child wrote all these emails, got in trouble, and then realized there's a higher level. There's another gear to go, higher level emotion. What am I really feeling? I'm feeling resentment. I don't want that. Okay, well, look what happened. I don't want that. Well, I'm going to go into forgiveness. What am I feeling? I'm feeling the flood and the openness of forgiveness. I'm feeling the sadness. I'm feeling all the rage transmute into the river moving through me, and I don't have control this moment. And so what? And I'm feeling that. And then that went into this secret unfolding, this little gem of a secret that created a bond that we never would have found. And now I am flying like an eagle. I am part of nature. I am part of the cosmic flow of life. I am awakened. I am bonded. I am safe. Um, there is a larger thing happening here, and I'm literally, I'm remembering it. It was awe. I was as if I'm standing on the top of a mountain, and a hawk came up and spoke to me, because that's really what it was like in that moment. What am I really feeling? I am feeling a state of awe. And somebody should put a bunch of hearts. So thank you for that. I'm so glad that you're here hearing this. Awe. So what happened then? Well, Carol every year put on a speech contest, a contest where the children were invited to all month. This is, I believe we did it every February, so it was part of African American History Month. And the children, there were children from Haiti, and there were children from the islands of Puerto Rico. There was some a mix of race, Asian, white, black, Hispanic, everything, a real mix of kids, a lot of Haitian children and island children, Puerto Rican and Dominican children in the class. So all of them were coming from, they were all coming from homes that were aware of the whole immigrant world in suburban New York. And everyone had awareness either from their friends or from their own family of groups of people and immigrants and racism and oppression and all those kinds of things. And every year we had a speech contest, and it was a great thing. And I went through it, and every year I would teach my kids, and each one would learn a speech, and the best in the class would represent us in the larger full school presentation and competition. And it was a great thing. But because of that moment, I went right back to that classroom, and I believe it was January, and we're getting ready for the speech contest all month in February. And because of that feeling, what am I really feeling? Awe. I'm feeling elated. I'm feeling high. I'm feeling powerful. I hit a higher gear that was so much more rewarding than the resentment and the victimhood, and had so much more fuel for me than all of those emails that I wrote trying to condemn Carol. And I just told every one of my classes, we're going to win this year. We're going to win. I was fueled. And it wasn't just that I was fueled to win. It was that now I had, because of that moment, because of handling that moment in forgiveness with Carol, that I didn't have an enemy. I had a partner, and I had a mentor. And I felt inspired by that moment. I felt inspired by our life. And I just had so much energy that I just poured it out into the kids, and just taught them about speech, and taught them about self-confidence, and taught them about finding their voice, and taught them about poetry. And we just rocked it, and we practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And it was just awesome. So what happened? We had the contest. All of the classes, all of the English classes had representatives from all of their classes, and there were 3 winners. And the kids from my class came in first and second. We didn't get third, but we came in first and second. All of that came from, what am I really feeling? Awe. I'm feeling awakened. I'm feeling conscious. I'm feeling part of nature. I would not have had that fuel to teach those kids in that way if I didn't handle that difficult situation in the way that I did, brought forgiveness in, having that consciousness is that this came from me, this came from my hurt inner child. It doesn't mean we want to eliminate the inner child. It means we want to be aware of the inner child feelings, and we never want to let the inner child lead. We want to hear the inner child. We want to handle those feelings. We want to be with those feelings, but we don't want to make decisions upon those feelings. And thank God I was conscious enough to realize what was going on, to do what? To enter into forgiveness. I'm guaranteed to get into that river, that beautiful river of healing and life, if I go into forgiveness. Now, my receiver may not be aware of that. Good sending is, how am I landing on my partner? You may have a difficult moment. Your receiver may not be the way Carol was. Carol was a sympathetic figure, but I didn't know that. That situation helped me to teach me that she was a sympathetic figure and was a willing partner in this kind of forgiveness. Not everybody in your life is, but that's part of the awareness of the mirroring practice. Good sending, good receiving. How am I landing on my partner? Part of it is realizing, oh, okay, can this land on my partner? Is my partner, I was just in a situation, a professional situation a few months ago. That was not an environment to handle with forget. My partner in that situation was very, very different than Carol, and would not have been able to handle what was there with me and Carol. So the micro, the sending and receiving in the moment, how am I landing on my partner? Am I being received? Are they able to receive me? All of that is extremely important. In that situation, it was so important that it opened the door to that learning, and that learning opened the door to an entirely different feeling state that ended up having a powerful effect, not just on the winners of the contest, not just on me professionally, but on all the students in my classroom that I taught, and me and Carol, because of the bonding that we had over that. And by the way, that year also, later in the year, after winning the speech contest, I had been volunteering as part of the Rockland County Jewish Film Festival, and there was a film called Paper Clips about children, a documentary about children in Iowa that were collecting paper clips as a representation of the amount of people that died during the Holocaust. So we had brought that film to the film festival, brought the director to show it, and I organized a few months later. So that was like May, after winning that contest. But the same energy out of that moment, I organized the largest field trip in our whole district's history to take all of the eighth graders of the schools to a beautiful theater in Rockland County, where they got to meet the director and have a screening just for them of this film Paper Clips, while we were reading the Diary of Anne Frank. And all these kids who may be from different, not them being Jewish, but that this is their first introduction to anti-Semitism, and understanding the realness of that, and understanding the Holocaust and what happened, and then making a connection to their own lives and their own families of what they were going through by reading Anne Frank, but also getting to see the movie and getting to meet the director and getting to have a real cinematic experience. None of that would have happened. None of that would have happened without going through the practices that led to the healing in that moment. So I'm of the firm belief that not every moment may lead to that level of sort of beautiful law of attraction, everything coming together. Not every difficult moment is meant to lead to that, but I believe that every difficult moment is imbued with that amount of depth, that we're having the difficult moment because the river of our life is calling us to move forward to these levels of awe, and these levels of inspiration, and these levels of achievement of ourselves, and these levels of emotionality that are required in order. We have to get to these higher levels of emotions in order to actually create and achieve who we really are in the moment. And so these difficult moments, to me, are always indicators of that, but we can't see it because the moment is so difficult right in front of us, that we have to open it up and create a clearing that will then teach us what's really going on. This is very, very important in all of our relationships in all situations. So what did you learn from that? I hope that story landed on you well. I hope you got, some of the key aspects of it. Again, one, what am I really feeling? Without that consciousness of my own feelings, my own management of difficult, dark feelings of being bullied and I'm going to get you back. And the awareness of that and the taking responsibility of that. What am I really feeling? I'm feeling forgiveness and allowing that to flow. And then once it was flowing and moving, the awareness of something else is going on here, but even better, the awareness that something else was going on there below the surface, in spite of all the unwanted, in spite of the crisis, in spite of the difficulty of the situation, that larger stuff was happening. And now, because of my consciousness, what am I feeling? What am I really feeling? Leading to a healing and leading to a learning, leading to a teaching, and leading to a powerful effect on all of the children. How can you use these tools? What's going on with you in your life and your situations that you may be facing these kinds of moments, or chronic, ongoing moments that you can't quite see that there? That's why you would need to maybe do some work with me. I invite you, go to the description section and you'll see a link to my website, to the page about intro session, and sign up for a Zoom coaching session with me. It's just great. It's going to be all me focusing on you and drawing this out of you and feeling where the power really is, and using mirroring to help teach you so that you could be aware of what you're really feeling, how it could go to the larger feeling of that is asking to be expressed, and what that can give you. And that all can happen in a half an hour with me on Zoom. So go to the description to check that out. And then the other thing is, take a look at the book. I'm going to do a little reading from the book. I don't even know where I'm going to read from, but let's see what comes up here. This is when I arrived right in Tokyo. So I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs from this, where I was overwhelmed by Tokyo. And this whole story is a bit about something that happened in New York. So this is perfect. Meanwhile, this is me being alone and flying all the way from New York to go to Tokyo to discover something about myself that I needed to deal with the topics of, am I staying married? Am I getting divorced? We're going to stay married and have kids. So if we get divorced and have kids, with all that was all going through my head. Madness, family of origin. Went to Japan, you could see, in order to just kind of cleanse that palate and have an awakening, and like, what am I going to do here, and who am I really? Okay, so the moment I arrive, and I'm trying to get a cab to get to my hotel, and we're running out of time because there's a curfew. I don't know if I'm going to get there or not. And I've given the address to a bunch of cab drivers outside of the train station, and I'm sitting there at night, having flown 17 hours with all my stuff, and I took way too much. And all of a sudden, I'm in Tokyo, and there's a lot of lights, and there's cab drivers arguing over how to get me where I need to go. A debate amongst the cab driver colleagues ensues. Meanwhile, Tokyo attacks my senses. The city expands through layers of mist and neon. Warm, thick electric charges of urban life abound and surround. Vertical vibrations rise from the streets as the dusk-colored sky sinks into the gray night. Hustling humanity moves with metropolitan momentum as a herd of quiet footsteps splish-splash over puddles. Splish, splash, splish, splash. The novel energy hits me like a waterfall. I am disoriented, lost, overwhelmed, exhausted. I need to focus on something, an idea to hang on, to keep me going, to maintain. Pretend you're in New York, I tell myself. Take on that mindset. A city is a city. Pretend this is New York, and you will have credibility, cachet, power. Everything will make sense. Maintain. Step into a New York state of mind. Boom. So that's a little piece from the Zen of Solo Travel. I hope you check it out. The links are all in the description. Thank you very much. There have been a couple of people who interacted with the video that you were watching it live. Thank you for being here. Your comments are welcome. Please subscribe. Please like this video. Please leave comments. Tell your friends about Healing Momentum. And thank you so much. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Bless your hearts. Thank you, my friend.